kid did. But people sometimes they don't understand the importance of telling a kid, no, don't yell in the house.
Right.
Don't do this, don't do that. And then they get to school and they're like, shoot, the way I conduct myself at home is I'm gonna conduct myself at school. And they're in for a rude awakening when they find out, I can't yell and respond to my teacher, or this kid did something to me. I can't just go punch him out.
Right.
Because they was picking on me yesterday, so I'm going to get them back today. So, talk to us about how can we as parents, because a lot of times we listen to this after the fact. How can we as parents deal with situations where our kids are being disrespectful? Is that a teaching opportunity, or is that an opportunity to knock them out?
Both.
As my pastor said, beat them, they won't die.
Yeah, both. Well, they definitely still need to be disciplined at home. But I also think that it's learned behavior. Sometimes the way the parents act in the home, they carry it on to school. If the parent and the child get into a shouting match and a cursing match at home, then when they come to school, they feel like it's okay to curse and yell at the adults in that building. So I do feel like parenting is number one. And also during that time, give your children examples. What's the definition of respectful? And give me some examples of what respect mean. And likewise, disrespectful. Okay, this is an example of being disrespectful right here. I don't want you to exhibit this once you leave this house. Well, while you're in this house, and plus while you're at that school, do not exhibit these type of behaviors. So I think as parents, we should just define those words. What's the definition of respect? How does respect look? What's the definition of disrespect? How does disrespect look? And also just remember and be mindful of how we parent. If they see you yelling and screaming and cursing, then like I said from the previous session, that's learned behavior. They're picking up on those traits. Therefore, they're going to carry that with them wherever they go and display those same traits that they learned in the home environment.
And that is so true. I was dealing with the kid. It's been years ago. And I was taking his mom to church with me. And the child was doing something. He was maybe 3 or 4. He said he was doing something he wasn't supposed to do. And the mama wasn't saying nothing. So, of course, you in my car, you ain't finna be cutting up and all that. So I told him to sit down somewhere and be quiet. The child cussed at me.
Say what?
Yeah, the child cussed at me. And I looked at the mama. I said, what did he say? And she said, girl, he be listening to my mama. She just be cussing and saying all kind of stuff because he be at home with her all day. And he just picked it up. Boy, just be quiet.
No, ma'am. Where did the correction come from? Did she correct him at any time during that car ride?
No, she did not.
No, ma'am.
No, she did not. We get to church. And he acting up in church. So, of course, she going to use that as an excuse as to why she can't come back to church because her baby keep acting up. I said, okay, I'll be right back. I put that finger up. And, behind the church, we got that good switch tree. I went out there and got me one of them good switches. And I came back in there and sat back down. I said, now you move or say something one more time. And she looking, cutting her eye at me like she didn't want me to say nothing to her child. Supposed to be my godchild. Didn't want me to say nothing to the child. And that boy acted right for the rest of the service. But because there was no discipline, he was allowed to be disrespectful. And she allowed him to do that and did not correct him. So much so that later on in life, it became an issue when he came to school. And parents don't equate, well, I'm just letting him be free and allowing that child to do and say or whatever. And then when they get to school, they want to carry that same behavior into the classroom. And unfortunately, when you allow that to happen, they carry that same attitude to work. I had a job. I have never seen 30 and 40-year-old women. They weren't even 30s. I was the youngest. They were in their 40s. Acting like little kids. They have a bad day coming to work. They come to work and throw a tantrum. Fussing, cussing, yelling at folks. Because they had a bad day coming to work. And expected us to be okay with it. And I was like, wow, these folks don't even know how to act. And they grown with children.
And that's why the kids act the way they act. They don't know how to control their emotions. They let their emotions control them. And whenever you let your emotions control you, that's a recipe for disaster.
The Bible says that a man who cannot control his temper is like a city without walls. You know, you have to, number one, learn how to carry yourself in society so you can teach your children. And then you got to teach them. Because children don't learn by osmosis.
Right.
They have to be instructed. The Bible said, train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they are older, they will not depart. Well, the training means you have to sit down and you have to literally have a conversation with your child. Because, you know, my kids, they're inquisitive. And there was one situation. And it was like, well, why can I not do that? Number one, you don't ask me why. You just do what I tell you because it's because I said so. Number two, you don't know what the consequences of your disobedience will bring. So you have to literally have a conversation. You don't yell in class because when you do, then you're disrupting the learning process. The teacher has to stop and deal with you. And then you're going to end up ultimately being put out or kicked out. And you don't want that to happen. So you have to literally, it's like having a class. You have to literally teach them. Just like you teach them how to clean a room and you teach them how to wash dishes, you have to teach them how to act. And a lot of times parents allow television, social media,
their friends,
to teach their children how to act. And they omit that conversation. And then sometimes I have found that just because you had it one time don't mean you're good. You ain't got to have that conversation no more. No, it may mean, you know, a couple of weeks later or a couple of years later, you got to reiterate. And what I found is with teenagers, you may have to have that conversation almost on a daily basis. Because for whatever reason, you could tell them one thing today and then I ain't hear you. What you said?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience to deal with teenagers.
It does.
So talk to us about disobedience. We talked about in the classroom. What are some other behaviors that you saw that may be seen as willful disobedience? And how do we as parents deal with that?
Well, like I indicated earlier, things that I have noticed or what I have witnessed, kids, they don't know how to communicate without cursing. They can't hold a sentence without using a curse word. And that's a problem.
But you know what? When I was watching this show, they were saying the S word and the F word as if it's okay on regular television. And they have fought so hard to push the line when it comes as far as television entertainment is concerned, to where they can be, as they say, free to express themselves. Sometimes I think they take I think it's the Second Amendment, freedom of expression, and they just use it for whatever. If I want to wear a shirt that say F you on it in public, I should be able to because I'm expressing myself. No, you should have enough common courtesy and decency for your neighbors, especially if you're in society and other children are reading that, to say, no, I better not wear something like that. But they use that Second Amendment as a badge of honor. I can do whatever I want to do if I'm expressing myself. I come to school dressed like a girl and I'm a boy if I'm expressing myself. And, you know, I'm throwing it out there because people use that, you know, to...
I think society and social media, they open doors to situations that normally we consider not appropriate. I feel like they're trying to desensitize us and make us accept things that we know that's not right. That we know that's not right. And like you were saying about the television show years ago, it wasn't that much cursing on television.
Oh yeah, definitely. If they said the H word, it was like, ooh, they said the H and the D word.
Yeah. A lot of things that we years ago would not accept, society and television make it the norm now. And I think a lot of times when kids watch television, videos, different people they look up to, whether some of these rappers, they take on what they see them doing and display those behaviors.
And a lot of times, you know, those behaviors make them money, but that's not who they really are.
Right.
You know, I think it was one time I was reading an article on Eminem. Now, I'm not a fan of Eminem. I know one song, Slim Shady. I don't know any of his other music.
That was like we was in high school.
But I read an article and they were talking about stop rapping for a long time. They was like, well, where have you been? What's been going on with you? He said, I was raising my children. He said, so I took a break from rapping and because I needed to be home with my kids and be present for them. And now that they're grown, I'm about to, you know, I'm revisiting the idea of coming out with music. And so they said, well, have your kids, you know, listen to your music? He said, no, I don't allow my children to listen to my music. And I was like, wow, you have put that out there. And I'm going to say for our children, but my kids didn't listen to them. But put that out there for people's kids to listen to. Your children don't even listen. I think Snoop Dogg said that his children wasn't allowed to listen to his music until they got up to a certain age. And it's like, wow. But how many times do we, as parents?
And it goes back to parenting. A lot of times I don't think parents monitor what their kids are watching, what they're listening to, what they're doing. They let them be free to raise themselves a lot of times. Well, not in all situations, because like I said earlier, I commend all the parents that are parenting. That are do great job. I commend you, you know, job well done. But for the ones that lack thereof, that's what's going on.
And it could be that it's a generational thing. Maybe their parent was too busy working, trying to provide, and they allowed their child to be raised by the TV. Because I was one of them. You know, my mama worked. She had, at that time, 2 kids. And she left us at our grandmama's house with my cousin. And so all we did all day long was watch TV. And when my grandmama left, we watched HBO. And when my grandmama was home, we watched Nickelodeon. But we couldn't wait till she leave. But we saw a lot. A lot of stuff that we shouldn't have been exposed to. And a lot of stuff that, you know, I'm very conscious when it comes to my kids. They got a little bit more freedom now that they're older, but I was really strict on them as they were coming up. And even so much so, some of my family members were like, well, then you got them children ain't going to be able to handle it when they get out there in the world and they da-da-da. And I'm like, no, it's my job as a parent to protect them as long as I can. And when we get to that situation where that stuff occurs, we have a conversation to prepare them. But I was like, wow.
Right.
You know, they just, you know. So, talk to us, what is parenting? How to parent?
Well,
because there's no manual.
It's not, and I'm not a parent. However, I would tell you this, just based on my mom, instilling in those kids good morals and belief.
Okay, what are morals?
In our case, Christian morals and belief. You know, raising your kids according to biblical principles, like I'm saying in our case, what's right, what's wrong, what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not supposed to be doing, what you're supposed to be watching. Not only teaching them and telling them, but doing. Because a lot of times you can say something and you can do, and you can tell them something, but if they watch you and see you are actually practicing what you preach. Because a lot of times you may tell a child to do something, but you're not even doing it. But see, if you lead the way and set the example before them, then that helps along the way. You know, you lead with the standard. You lay down the foundation. You instill in them those good quality principles and godly principles that they should have. And I do believe that if you instill, like my mom, there are different principles that she instilled in us. So even when we got away with doing things, you know, got into society and do things that we know we shouldn't be doing, you can only go so far because you remember that was instilled, that was placed in you. So you know, I'm not going to touch that. I better come back this way because I can hear my mama's voice saying this or my mama's voice saying that. So I think it makes a difference when you teach your kids, and not only do you teach the kids those principles, you also demonstrate. You live that life before them. I know a lot of kids, they don't go to church. You know, taking your kids to church. You know, spending family time with them, eating dinner with them as a family instead of everyone being on their cell phone and everybody watching television. Let's say our family time. How was your day today? Tell me about your day. What happened today?